All right, well, it is 5 o'clock, so we will call this meeting of the Iowa City Parks and Recreation Commission to order. So first up on the agenda, we have the minutes from the prior meeting on April the 13th, 2022. They are included in your packet. Any comments or corrections from the commission on those minutes? Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Willis.
I'll second.
And a second by Commissioner Sorenda. Sorenda, I thought so. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? And the minutes are passed. All right. Item number 3, discussion from the public on any items that are not on the agenda. So once we get to items that are on the agenda that you would like to talk about, we'll have some time for public comment. But if there's something that you would like the commission to consider that's not on the agenda, now would be the time. All righty. Moving on to item number 4, recreation facilities and program master plan. The way we will proceed is first we'll have a presentation from the consultants, and then as soon as that's concluded, we'll open up the floor for comments from the public on that item, and then we'll move to comments and questions by the commission.
All right, so I would like to introduce 2 of our consultants, which some of you have met. We have Daniel Wilson and Elsa Fisher from, Barry Dunn Consultants. Hope that goes well in the minutes. They've been with us for over a year, gathering feedback and combining this into our draft recommendation. I would just let everyone know that indeed these are draft recommendations, and there are some fairly large, big picture things that we're thinking about. So we really would like to hear from the public about thoughts and comments about it. The end goal is to gather those comments over the next 2 weeks and have this presented to the City Council on June 21st as a draft plan as well at that point. So they would get the recommendations from the plan as it is now, along with feedback received between now and then. As a commission, as we go through this, there are some areas we would like to hear your comments on afterwards, and if you felt comfortable giving recommendations at that point, it would be a recommendation pending additional public comment, but you're welcome to do that as well, or to wait. So either one is fine. We will have to cut off the public comment after this at 6:45, which won't be too much of a problem with 2 or 3 people, but if we have more people come, we have another public meeting right after this, so we need to cut that off and finish the meeting. So with that, commission members, you'll want to turn in your chairs because we'll be up on the screen.
Hello, everyone. Now you can hear me. I just need to turn up the volume, get it closer to my mouth. So welcome. Thanks for coming to our public members, and thank you all commission members. We know you are very busy and appreciate you adjusting your schedules to make this happen. Tonight, my name is Danielle Wilson. Feel free to call me Danny. This is Elsa Fisher. We are both from Barry Dunn. We are the lead consultant of all of the logos that you see at the bottom there. Our whole and entire team, and we'll just jump really quickly to our whole entire team, has been spending a lot of time listening to the community, talking to staff, digging deep into data analysis to really understand what you have. But specifically, our task was to help the city create a roadmap for future recreation programs, aquatic facilities, indoor recreation space, and outdoor athletic and specialty use areas. So that is our task. You already have a Parks Master Plan. This is very specific to programming and the spaces that support that programming. Where we are at in the process is that we have conducted all of the community engagement in phase 1, up at the top there. Then the consulting team did a ton of assessment and analysis. We are now in that envision phase where we start to put all of that together. What did we hear from the community? What did we hear from staff? What did we see in what we did in our individual analysis pieces? And now how do we start putting that together? So as Julie mentioned, this is in the draft form. And now today actually on Saturday, we started entering into phase 2 of our public engagement process. And so, speaking of community engagement, Elsa is going to share what we have done to date for engaging your community.
Thanks, Danny. So community engagement started actually last fall, and this little flyer went out to residents outlining all of the events where the recreation staff had pop-up events to gather input about this planning process. So there were many, many opportunities for people to get involved. Danny and I facilitated 10 focus groups with a variety of different types of organizations from Iowa City. As I said, the staff did 13 events that attracted 299 people. There was a statistically valid survey that was conducted by ETC Institute. All they do is surveys, so we consider them survey experts. And then the same survey was also made available online for anyone in the community who wanted to fill one out. And the two surveys were actually tabulated separately, but another 216 people filled out that survey. And then Barry Dunn created a social pinpoint site where people could go online and take part in a number of opportunities to weigh in about what was working, what wasn't working, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they'd like to see more of, how facilities were operating. So there's an engagement summary of all of these things that we conducted that I think is probably 100 pages long. So if you want to read that, there's a lot of information about that. So now we're in phase 2 of engagement. We had one open house this afternoon over at Mercer. We're meeting with all of you today, and then we have another open house here tonight at 7:15. So phase 1 and phase 2 of the community engagement. So the ETC Institute conducted the statistically valid survey, and one of the things that ETC has created is called the Priority Investment Rating. And this rating reflects the importance of a program or a facility along with the unmet needs. So it's combining those two things. And this is hard to read on the next chart. On the next slide, we can go through the priority investment ratings for indoor facilities. So this is top items for potential investment for recreation center amenities. The first one, indoor walking jogging track, and the second one, weight room. And incidentally, that's the highest score that we've ever seen for an indoor walking and jogging track. It's often an item that's very, very popular, and people want these, especially in communities where the winter hits and you're kind of locked inside. But certainly Iowa City has a lot of interest in an indoor walking jogging track. In terms of programming, people are very interested and have a need for adult fitness and wellness and nature programs. The farmers market here is serving a lot of needs, and certainly a very, very important program. Outdoor pool amenities, shade areas, lazy river, deck chairs, lap lanes, recreational swimming areas, all priorities for outdoor swimming. Pool program for investment, pool program ideas, water fitness classes, lap swimming, certainly a very popular program in Iowa City, senior aquatic programs, swimming lessons, and youth open swim opportunities. So throughout all the engagement, we asked the same question with every single group. And the question was, if the cost were the same, do you prefer to renovate City Park Pool exactly as it is today, or would you like to see a new layout? So this is the combination of all of the times we asked this question with the survey, the events, the social pinpoint site, and the focus groups. And as you can see, almost 56% of the respondents prefer a new layout compared to almost 36% who want the same layout. So there's a desire in Iowa City for some change. But people want to keep the aesthetics of the pool and the character that is there now. So they want something new, but they still would like to keep some of the traditions that have been there. Okay, so throughout the engagement, there were some high-level themes that emerged. Obviously, the first one, City Park Pool renovations. The pool is 73 years old. It's time to renovate. The future of the indoor pools, big topic of conversation. The recreation centers, what's working, what needs to be added. Program promotion came up, and then pickleball came up every single time we talked to people, and every survey question, whether the survey was asking about pickleball or not. People want their pickleball courts renovated, and they want them expanded. So indoor facilities, I think I'm turning it over to Danny to talk about.
Yeah, we're going to talk about indoor facilities. So we want to first start with Mercer Aquatic Center and Scanlon Gymnasium. And so our architect, our aquatic engineer, and our ADA consultant all visited all of the buildings. And so starting with this one, what they ended up doing is looking at what's the highest priority. Now there are 3 levels of priorities, a whole long list that we're not going to bore you with this evening, but will be in the report that you can see all priority 1 items, all priority 2, etc. So here are some photos for you to just exemplify what they do. They go in, they see opportunities for improvement or things that need fixing. So for example, at Mercer Park Aquatic Center and Scanlon Gymnasium, there are things like, yeah, let's fix this caulk, let's fix this leak in the solarium window, that sort of thing. Or there's some infiltration of water coming in this doorway, let's get that fixed. So we do have this whole long list of things, including opportunities to make each facility even more accessible. So here are some examples of what comes to the top at Mercer. So for example, they'll look at stair height, or is the changing bench in this case too high? All of those items get delineated. You already had a transition plan, an ADA transition plan. This is an update to it to see what progress is made and what still needs to be accomplished. So we start to look at things like, all right, well, what does this mean? There's some stainless steel that needs to be fixed. That's hopefully fixed now that we've had the ventilation upgrade recently. There are some things on the pool deck. Yes, overall great condition. A few areas that could use a little bit of TLC. All in all, indoors, the existing pool is in really good condition. Outside, the wading pool, not as great condition. And for those of you who have been there for a while, you'll probably just be able to see it just with your own eye, that there are some things that need to be fixed. And this leads into conclusions for the aquatic center portion of that building that really, as long as you keep up, the staff keeps up with the repairs, they've done a great job already keeping that facility in a really great shape. So as long as those repairs are continued, you'll keep that deterioration down, no problem. Outside, however, the wading pool isn't really used. It's not in really good condition right now. So it's either invest or divest. And we'll show you our recommendation in a little bit here. So after that, once we move from Mercer, we can move on to Robert A. Lee Community Recreation Center.
Thanks, Danny. So again, all of the experts evaluated all these facilities. And at Robert A. Lee, the priority 1 findings, the natatorium, we need to remediate the rusted structural connections. And the pool in this facility is 58 years old, and the pool is built on top of a bomb shelter. So when the pool gets renovated, it's going to be very costly to dig down and repair what needs to be repaired. You guys look surprised by that.
The concrete under this building is at least twice what it would typically be in any other building, which is what we've run into with both of our recent renovation projects. So just an interesting fact.
So there's some seepage, and so definitely issues with the pool. As far as the facility, the rest of the facility, the upper level quarters, they're not compliant for egress. Same thing on the lower level. So that's an ADA, it's actually a compliancy issue that needs to be dealt with. In terms of ADA, there's some issues with ramps that are too steep. There's some signage that's not at the right height for all people of all abilities. So here's the full list. There's some pool piping, some issues with the wading pool. The filters have reached the end of their useful life, and the surge tank is deteriorating and in very poor shape. So one of the things that needs to be considered is comparing the cost to renovate this pool to potentially building something new at Mercer, which is a part of the conversation. So the conclusions, the pool is 58 years old, and the repairs are there's a long list, and they need to be addressed. And then I talked about comparing the replacement to to creating something new. So some big decisions and some big dollars that need to be considered. City Park Pool.
Okay, so similar exercise done at City Park Pool. That from the bathhouse perspective, there are some damaged vents and cedar fascia that needs to be replaced. And really, there's a lot going on in that facility. Anyone who's been there, again, just the naked eye can see there's some repair work to be done. But what we don't see are things like on the right-hand side, the confined space, that there's an issue with access to that particular space. So that is something that will need to get remedied. Additionally, from a pool perspective, we will say the staff got commended for their ability to keep this pool operational for going on 73 seasons. So kudos to the staff, and these are from people who look at pools like these as a part of their job every day, all day. So kudos to staff, but the paint is peeling. You can only do so much painting every year to keep up with it. There's some stuff with the gutters, etc. But really, by the way, some ADA accessibility issues from slope and some of the things too high. Again, there's a whole list of items that pertain to City Park Pool. But the thing that we need to remember, what's underlined there is the pool loses 30,000 gallons of water per day. And I'm just going to pause there because that's a lot of water. There are problems going on that the staff, just as best as they can to try to keep up with it. It is 72 years old. Our consultant doesn't know of another facility that is still operating like yours is, knock on wood, at this age. So number one is it does, from a findings perspective, sure, you could try to keep Band-Aiding, but a Band-Aid is only going to hold this age of a pool together for so long. And really the recommendation is you've got to move forward with renovating it. So, and with that, we'll talk more about how to renovate it. We're going to switch to outdoor facilities.
So the parks that have athletic facilities in them were evaluated by the landscape architects, and what they did at the 5 parks is they evaluated the site on specific criteria, and then separately they evaluated all of the athletic fields or the courts. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how they evaluated each site. They looked at the physical nature of the site, so the usable area, the shape of the parcel, and expansion ability. They looked at environmental factors such as slope, vegetation, soil, wetlands, floodplains, water table, site cleanup, site prep. They also evaluated infrastructure, which is all the services: water, sanitary, storm sewer, electrical, telecommunications, gas service, and any existing buildings. They also evaluated transportation, so major arterial access, collector access, pedestrian and bike access, proximity to lodging, proximity to entertainment, proximity to residential, existing parking, and internal roads. And then the last thing they evaluated in conjunction with all these sites is regulatory or administrative. So land costs, perceived ease of sale, zoning, setbacks, easement restrictions, and political or cultural issues. So those are all the things that they evaluated about the site. And then the athletic fields or the courts, they actually looked at the turf conditions, the drainage, the slopes, the condition of the court. So every single facility then got a score. So this was done for Mercer, for Napoleon, for City Park. 2 more. Here they are. Okay, so then all of those evaluations led to this chart, which obviously we're not going to go through, but it's in the final report. So City Park, East Side, Kickers, Mercer, and Napoleon, these are all of the items that need to be addressed at some point. And East Side Sports Complex, that's a proposed plan. Obviously, there's nothing there now, but the plan was developed about 6 years ago, and all of that information is on the city's website. So outdoor facilities. So these are the 5 sites and the upgrades that have been recommended. So the first one, City Park Pool, includes some improvements to the ball fields and improvements to pickleball and tennis. And the estimated cost for those improvements is $4 to $5 million. The East Side Sports Complex includes new ball diamonds, 6 of them, up to 10 rectangular fields, a dog run, picnic areas, a looped trail, restrooms, a playground, and also an indoor building, 95,000 square feet, for some sort of activity. So that cost is $35 to $40 million. Kicker Sports Complex, the highlights there are to design a master plan and then estimate the resulting recommendations. The landscape architect is estimating that this will cost between $50,000 and $2 million. At Mercer, the improvements include ball field renovation, a new concession roof, shade features, LED lights, and pickleball renovation and expansion. And the cost for that site is between $3 and $4 million. And then lastly, Napoleon upgrades. This is strictly ball field improvements, and the improvements are estimated to cost between $1.5 million and $2 million. So demographics. We did a full demographics report as part of our study that will inform the report, and that's all in the final report. I'm not going to go through all of them here. It's lots of charts and graphs, but it will show you where Iowa City was in 2010, where it was estimated in 2021, and where it's proposed to be in 2026. All right, moving on to the recreation assessment.
Okay, thank you. So when we say recreation assessment, we look at the programming menu and we say, well, what's the department doing really well? What are opportunities for strength, for growth? Do we have performance measures? And by the way, does what's being currently offered align with the community's expressed needs? So when we start to do that, we identify what those core programs are. You can see those on the left. And then on the right-hand side, 2019, you may be wondering why we're looking at 2019 data still, but that is our last full set of our typical data that we have seen over time. The last few years have been a little atypical in what we provide from a recreation perspective. So you'll see that evolution continue to shift. But for now, when we assessed what happened in the past, you'll see that over half of the programs fall in that blue portion of the pie chart. That's all the aquatics programming that happened. Now, these are enrollment-based experiences through the department. Then after that, the youth sports was about 14%, and then STEAM-related programming about 10%, etc. So that was the 2019 distribution when you look at the whole program menu. Then when you look at enrollment, there is a little bit of a shift, and the most notable one would be that light blue pie piece at the bottom, where 18% of the participation was in the inclusive and adaptive recreation programming, which is really fantastic that you have such great participation and need. And we'll talk about that in a little bit with one of Elsa's slides coming up. But what we like to see is what are people participating in, and compare that. Well, what's being offered in comparison to what people are actually enjoying the most. We also can dig into that by season, so you can see in a little bit different way in the same data. We can say, oh wow, look at that. We really have aquatics programming. In other communities, summer shoots up with number of programs offered in aquatics because an outdoor pool opens, when in fact you all are doing a fantastic job offering swimming and consistently through the whole year's cycle. So that was one observation we made. Another we'll point out later is that really little point with fitness and wellness. There isn't as much fitness and wellness programming happening currently in the past. But what we've learned from the community is there is a desire for that. And we'll go into that in a minute. I forgot we had this next piece of assessment where we look at, all right, well, where did the folks that participated with the department's programming, where do they live? So what you'll see is the hot parts of this map are the pinks and the purples, and into then that yellow. The yellow is the most dense level of participation according to where folks live. And you'll see that, yes, on the east side, you have more participation. You also have a higher population density there. On the west, though, our original hypothesis was we're not going to see as much participation on the west, when in fact, we've got a really great reach out west currently. So that's a really great sign. As the west continues to develop, you still be able to reach that community, that segment of your population. We also looked at DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the staff was really committed to digging deep, more so than any staff team than we've ever worked with, on how do we provide programs and making sure that we are being equitable, we are intentionally trying to include people, how can we do better at that? So we won't go deep into how that assessment happened, but now because of this analysis, the staff has some identified opportunities for continued growth. Internally, they also looked at some of how those programs are administered, and are there ways that the administrative functions can shift, not just with scholarship, but how they plan for those programs to be even more equitable and reach a larger, more broad and diverse audience. Finally, we did look at what else is happening in the community surrounding areas to make sure we understood who's offering what, because the department is not the only recreation provider. There are other opportunities, but by the way, we start to notice things like not a lot of other agencies are providing inclusive and adaptive recreation services. So that helps point our recommendations a little bit to say, yeah, keep going with that type of programming. So that's where we'll shift gears here and show you a little bit about how we connect what we learned with what our engagement results were.
So connection to the community engagement with the farmers market, really, really, really important program and popular program with Iowa City residents. And I'm not going to read all of the statistics. You can read them, but it was important on the survey. It was important with the pop-up events that the staff did. And 88% of the statistically valid survey respondents who had a need for the farmers market had fully and mostly met needs. So people have a need and you're providing, and people are really happy with it. So at the bottom it says keep going. So to keep doing what you're doing with the farmers market. Next, adult fitness and wellness. So lots of households have a need, but in 2019, fitness and wellness programs accounted for only 1.2% of the programs offered. So this is a growth opportunity for the department to create some new adult fitness and wellness programs. Inclusion and adaptive recreation, Danny just talked about that. 16% of survey respondents indicated a need for programs for people with disabilities. That's a fairly high percentage. Enrollments in 2019, 1,800 enrollments accounted for 18% of all enrollments. So, and in Iowa City, there's only minimal similar providers. So it's really, really important that the department keep doing what they're doing and expand programming in this area. Aquatics is really, really important in Iowa City. We heard that over and over and over again. Your Learn to Swim programs, people have a need for that. Every time, in every type of engagement, we heard lots and lots about aquatics. So you have a solid lesson program, and certainly there's some opportunities for growth with the aquatic exercise. And that's also one where there's few other providers. With youth sports, so this is kind of a mixed bag. 10.7% of the in-person event respondents were interested. It ranked 23 out of 28. And only 8% of the statistically valid survey respondents listed this as one of their top 4 most important activities. So there are some other community-based providers for youth sports, and our recommendation at the bottom was maybe consider redefining what the breadth and depth of youth sports provision entails, potentially going out beyond traditional sports. STEAM, this is another one where we think it's really important that the department continue to incorporate STEAM into existing programs. There's few providers. There's certainly interest. And 72% of the statistically valid survey respondents who had a need indicated that their need was only partially or fully unmet. So another opportunity to continue. So in a nutshell, the programming opportunities: fitness and wellness, adult programming, inclusive and adaptive expansion, aquatic exercise, opportunities for teens, and culture. So then we know that people want those programs and that those are programs that the department needs to continue. So then what facilities are needed to support those programs? So fitness and wellness was a top priority. Indoor walking, jogging track, certainly high on the list. Weight room, fitness room were 3 of the top 4 survey respondents' top choices. A room with inclusive and adaptive equipment and a sensory space. Warm water pool. And then multi-purpose space can serve 13 of the 20 program categories listed in the survey. So multi-purpose space that can serve lots of needs is certainly a priority in Iowa City. All right, draft plan.
The draft plan. So all of us all what we've talked about leads us to this place where we start to set the path. So those key findings, really, if we can kind of boil them down to 8 areas, but there's so much opportunity that we have in the full report where we get to give you the highlights here, but we've got a lot of work for the staff ready for the next 10 years. So one of those things we learned, one of the key findings is that City Park Pool, as Elsa mentioned, go ahead and we need to renovate it, but we need to retain that original aesthetic and character in doing so. Talked about growing programs that focus on cultural experiences for teens and for adults, and we would love the department to continue to think about adult programming according to the different age segments needs within that broad term adult, that there are young adults, active agers, and seniors all in that mix, and helping to define the future of the department's role in each of those 4 subcategories. There are some supply and demand gaps with adult fitness and wellness, nature, aquatic, and inclusive adaptive programs. The indoor pool here in the facility we stand in, Robert A. Lee Community Recreation Center, does need extensive and expensive repair. A warm water pool could provide better access to and support for swim lessons, aquatic exercise, and open swim. Some additional facility space to help support those programs we just talked about, multi-purpose, fitness, wellness, and, by the way, spreading them across geographically diverse locations throughout the community is important, one of the key findings. And we do need to prioritize those outdoor facility upgrades. We're looking for more community feedback. And so that is one of the things we're looking for today and all of these 2 weeks is to have the community help us. Yeah, what do we want to do for priorities? We'll get more into that in a moment. So from a geographic access perspective, on the north, we see an opportunity to add a multi-purpose room when the City Park Pool renovations happen. So into that bathhouse or into the structure that would support the staff administrative functions, there could be a new programming room as a part of that renovation. From the east, Scanlon Gymnasium, we have opportunities to grow the space that's currently there and expand the footprint there to allow for more gymnasium-based programming and a walking, jogging track. We'll look at that in a moment in an image format. On the south, we do have an example that we will show you of a satellite building. So what that means is it's not a full-on recreation center, but it's a more neighborhood-based place that the community can use for renting for their own functions, or the staff can program and do summer camp out of and have a place if it starts raining outside to come indoors in the summer. So that proposal, yes, we could do it in the south. We do see opportunities for that to also perhaps help develop in the west and maybe in the east in the future. So we do want to watch for that land acquisition opportunity out west and see if that would work, the satellite facility would work out there. So let's dig in a little bit to City Park Pool. We're going to review these. Again, they're design concepts. They are not set in stone. We'll talk through them with you right now, and then we will open it up to the commission for some questions, some pointed questions that we have for you. But first, we do want to explain that at City Park Pool, some of the proposed changes would be that on that north side, there's a drive-up space where folks could drop off. We understand parking can be difficult, so a drop-off opportunity could be built into that part of the location. Then as we move further down, you'll see these yellow triangles on the screen. Those yellow triangles represent shade structures. So one of those top priorities that we heard was shade. The other top priority we heard was the notion of having ample deck chair space. Like, we just want more places to sit down. So there are opportunities throughout identified, and I will see if you all can see this. So there's little, almost more shade umbrellas over here with deck chairs. If you move over to the west side, there's opportunity for a little bit of chairs. There's also a lawn area now designated for perhaps camp groups, or your family just wants a little extra space to spread out. There is an opportunity to the south here to also expand the current footprint. So I will try to show you, starting on the west side, there's a white dotted line that comes all the way here and crosses where we've got some umbrellas, cabana looking things there for you, and around to the east side and back up. That dotted line is your current footprint. So the proposed draft plan right here is to expand that footprint to take advantage of that tree canopy that you have for shade, and also give more space for folks to spread out a little bit. The water part, let's talk about that for a moment. That on the north side, this gradient that you see from light color blue down to a darker blue, that means it goes from shallow to a little bit deeper. So it's a little bit hard to tell if you are in the back, but feel free, we've got the boards after we're done. You can come look at those. On the southern part of the body of water, those are stairs. So big steps going into the gradual entry into the water. So there are really 3 accessible entrance points. The other is over here. There's a little ramp that would come in to help people get into the 50-meter lap lane swim area. And then finally on the westernmost side would be that dive well. What this particular design concept tries to do is incorporate the numerous and variety of feedback of what people want in the pool. We're trying to meet a lot of needs in one body of water, with actually expanding the bather load now from what it currently is. This is actually a larger bather load capacity, and because we will reduce the depth of the water, it actually reduces the amount of water you would need to fill the pool, less impact on the environment, less chemicals that you need to maintain this space. So we see some really great advantages to shifting more towards this more shallow water to allow for more folks to participate on this side. There is, by the way, there's a current channel here. There was, if you recall, if you were astute, you might remember there was a lot of question, can't we do a lazy river? One of the great opportunities that this particular structure design provides is you don't need as many lifeguard staff members to monitor this type of layout. When you start adding things like lazy rivers, the number of staff, the people power that you need goes up tremendously. So we see a lot of opportunities there. Elsa, did I miss any details of this design?
I did. You did mention the community room for this pool.
We did mention community room, but I didn't use the fancy laser pointer over here. Those are solar panels that are depicted. And in this particular design concept, there are 2 different buildings, actually. The right-hand side, this eastern side, is the bathhouse space with non-gender designated spaces to be able to change, to shower, to go in and use the restroom. Right now, the way you have to enter City Park Pool, you have to choose male or female. If you have somebody who is accompanying you because you have a special need, again, right now you have to make that choice if they are of a different gender than you. So we're trying to come up with a design that would also be as inclusive as possible from a number of different perspectives. And there are bathrooms for the park. Thank you, Elsa. Look, over to the west. This is where the filter building is. There's an access drive here, but by the way, we can add a restroom onto that. And so it's hard to see with this little fence line, kind of cuts that building in half. So you can add an access point externally to provide flush toilets, which folks always appreciate in a park. Thank you for that. We'll shift over to Mercer Park Pool. Because so much repair is needed here, we wanted to look at opportunities to potentially consider centralizing indoor pool service provision in town. The goal was, let's not lose any level of service, but let's try to make some gains on what amenities we can provide and what we can accomplish if the staff are all in the same location from an indoor pool management perspective. So on the southern side, you'll see there is a warm water therapy pool as well as a hot tub. The goal is to have an accessible ramp that goes into the hot tub so that folks who might be participating in a water aerobics class can come out of that and still be able to access the hot tub to enjoy their time there. Now, the thing that you might not be able to see from the back of the room is this is the footprint of where the current wading pool is. So we take advantage of that space and that current solarium space that's here on this southern side and create a warm temperature environment and warm water environment.
The rest of the pool doesn't change.
The rest of the pool, thank you. The rest of the pool does not change. The rest of the pool is in great condition. Staff are doing a really good job maintaining it. This is still 50 meters. This still has the bulkhead that's movable.
So it's just taking over that solarium area?
Yes, it just takes over this space and makes it into a useful space that, what do folks come to Robert A. Lee most for? Well, the water's kept warmer here, so the swim lessons are warmer here. So it's a desirable space for those swim lessons and for those activities in the water that you desire warmer water. In a larger pool body of water like this, you do kind of want it cold in general. So this helps meet the variety of temperature desires and the additional aquatic exercise and swim lesson needs in town.
You mentioned the locker rooms are just a blob at this point.
Yes, we're going to the north side. Thank you, Julie. The north side, right now we see a lot of opportunity to recapture some of the space there. So there's duplication right now with the locker rooms, and we want to try to, on the left, right now it is a blob, that we want to make a gender neutral changing and toilet area. And so with that space conceptually, we're working with the architect to say, yeah, how can we do this? How can we make that happen? We also would like to take advantage of some of the space to create what could be a party room or a multi-purpose room. The other opportunity is to move. Currently, there are some offices in the middle. We'd like to get them closer to an external wall to get some natural light for staff. That is a citywide initiative to try to increase from a health perspective, more access to natural light. So that is a goal here. By the way, speaking of restrooms, this one could be an opportunity to provide external flush toilet restroom access, again, at a different park though. And you'll notice there is one reception desk here, this green box. Right now you have 2 reception areas. Now you would consolidate and come down to 1. So ultimately what we'd like to start to help you do is make this space more efficient between the pool side and the gymnasium and program room side. Speaking of the gymnasium side, this proposal says let's add another court onto the end, essentially, of what you have currently in Scanlon Gymnasium. Let's keep that wall in between, helps with noise, helps with keeping balls from one side to the other, but let's do a walking track all the way around the outside on the first floor. Then the current Procter & Gamble room area does get divided out a little bit easier to help with access. It's a possible place to put health and fitness programming, some multi-purpose room spaces. Oh my goodness, we've got a scan me here code in the way. So that didn't get, my apologies there. The purple blobs are meant to show you multi-purpose room space. Then finally, the bottom right-hand corner that you see on this side of the facility is an opportunity for a kids gaming room, esports opportunity. That there are a lot of teenage folks that go to that facility because of the proximity to the junior high. So let's keep some amenities here that would attract a different interest group from a recreation perspective. The satellite facility concept is just blown up for you a little bit here, where the purple room you see is the main area, the main focus of this space. Again, it is not a full-on recreation center. It offers just under 1,400 square feet of a programmable room that is designed to be multi-purpose. There is a corridor, there is a kitchen, so if there was an event that you wanted to host there, if the staff needed to store snacks for the campers, by the way, there is a storage area to be able to support programming out of this space. The dotted red lines that you see are opportunities for expansion in this, just from this layout, the north and south. But this is just the concept. It does not exist in any one location. We do have some ideas of where that could be, though. For example, there was a lot of feedback that the South District needs more access to indoor space. They don't have as much as perhaps the central area of town. The outdoor facility priorities, so this is what you did see earlier, but what we would like to ask the public for is, okay, but which site should get improvements first? Like, well, how do we make that decision? So we've put this out to the public through this current feedback opportunity. And finally, from a program growth perspective, these areas that were defined as, hey, let's grow some programs in these spaces. We're interested in having people in the community giving some feedback on, hey, I'd like to see you do this program for teens with a specific title. So that's what you'll see on the website, where you can give feedback, and later tonight at the open house, folks can give us actual titles. I'd love if you did this particular type of program. All right, so now it's your turn, commissioners. I think this is where we turn our chairs. I'm taking Julie's cue. And this is where we raise the first question.
So
I think they want to do public input.
Public input first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And if for public input, if you would please come up to the mic tonight. This is a little different format for us. State your name and address for the record as well.
Hi, Justin Fishbaugh, 221 East College Street. So I have some questions about the facility in this building, which is Robert A. Lee Pool, right? I'm just curious, did the survey show that people wanted this facility closed?
So the answer to that is the recommendation is based on the amount of the cost of the repairs needed for the swimming pool itself, not the entire facility. And so that's why the current recommendation in this report would be to spend that money at Mercer for the expansion, and indeed this pool could potentially close after that point. So.
But the survey didn't show that people wanted it closed. Is that right?
It didn't ask that specifically. Okay. It's based on all of the other information gathered.
Did people indicate they wanted it to stay open? I'm just curious.
That question just wasn't asked.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, in the comments, did people say, hey, I want this swimming pool to stay open? Did nobody commented about that?
I don't remember any strong one way or the other. So.
It's interesting, huh? So you talk about a lot about cost to renovate this, and I read the email that you sent out earlier, and so the cost, which you really emphasize a lot, is actually half to renovate this versus going over to Mercer. Can somebody comment about that? Twice is a big, it's almost twice. It's a big difference.
So I will answer that. So the early estimates are about $4.5 million for the renovations needed just for the pool here. And that's kind of with some of the unknowns of if we start getting into the piping and whatnot, we just don't know. So indeed, the thought of moving it to Mercer was to allow for something that was asked for in multiple different ways throughout the process, which was the warm water pool for aqua fitness and swimming lessons. Also to help with staffing, aquatic staffing. For the first time ever, we're really having to admit that it's really hard to get enough lifeguards to staff all of our facilities. If you've watched any of the news coverage, Iowa City is one of the few places that has enough lifeguards right at this point. Most communities are looking at having to close a number of their facilities for this summer. So we are also looking at what would make it more efficient for staffing and operations. And then finally, just the locker rooms and the other things that need renovations here really add to that price tag. So indeed, you are right. It would be about twice the cost to do that at Mercer. But then you would end up with a facility that is being asked for by a number of people through this process. Free parking was the other huge thing that people brought up about a reason not to come here to Robert E. Lee and why they'd rather be at Mercer. That's just the results. Not necessarily staff opinion, just the results.
Okay. So one of the things that looked like was emphasized in one of the slides there was open swim. You know, at any facility, I guess, open swim is a big deal. But it looks like if you close this facility, you're going to cut out a gigantic portion of open swim and not add anything at Mercer. So I just wondered if you could comment about that.
So it depends on what you are considering open swim.
So I'm talking about lap swimming.
Okay, so lap swimming, yes, it would be less hours of lap swimming, but we feel that there definitely is the capacity at Mercer to take the number of swimmers that have been using this pool over the last few years. Different operation, we realize that impacts people, hence why we're being very open about this as a recommendation, and would really, we want your feedback on that. But overall, we feel like the Mercer pool is large enough to accommodate all the lap swimmers that are here, plus who are using that pool right now.
Okay, thank you. So the last thing I wanted to comment about, and from one of the slides, was that there's a lot of participation from the west side of Iowa City, for pool participation. And so now you're going to have to, all those people are going to drive even farther to get to Mercer. And I just wondered, when you looked at that information, did that make a difference to people, how far they had to drive to go to an indoor pool?
It's primarily the people coming for swimming lessons. And they're coming here because this is where we have most of the swimming lessons, just simply because the warmer water here. I think we could offer the same at Mercer and have the same access, if not easier access, to get over there. So, okay. But a good question for sure.
And I guess I said it last question, but I got one more here I just thought of. So, Iowa City is always improving their downtown. There's lots of building going on and that kind of stuff. It seems like having a pool downtown would be a good idea for the downtown area, and that's going to go away because according to the email, you're going to close this and it's all going to go to Mercer. So can you comment about that?
Potential, and that was brought up in this afternoon's meeting as well. Are we being equitable in our aquatics programs by doing that? I think that's a valid question. I can see the space being used in a lot of different ways that we haven't explored yet. So this facility would be lively and used by the public in some way. It just may not be swimming.
Okay, so this facility will stay here. It won't be torn down.
Oh, no. It would have some public use. It may change in what the mix of public use is, but I don't see this as being a building that would be torn down anytime soon.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Melliker. I grew up in Iowa City, and I swam here at the rec center.
Address?
1918 Ridgeway Drive, East Sider. My big, when I look at all of this, I use this pool 3 days a week. I spend a lot of money on Aquasize with the city of Iowa City every month. It's not a cheap endeavor compared to health clubs. But my big concern as I look at this, I don't want this pool to close. Because I do use it. I understand it's old. I understand that the costs are really high to fix it, and I also understand all of these costs are really high, right, at all these facilities. But my first concern when I saw this plan was, okay, so you close this pool, and it's going to cost twice as much to expand Mercer. What then? What are you going to? How much is it going to cost to fix this pool area so that you can utilize it for another purpose? Because that is not even being considered in this equation at all. And so it's not just like, oh, let's double the cost and take it to Mercer because it's so expensive, but you've also got another potential 10 million or 12 million or whatever it is, 5 million, to repurpose this space. And so I'm curious, I want to encourage all of you to consider that, you know, because that's not on the table right now, right? And number two, if you know, what are you going to do with this big open space if you close the pool?
Yeah. There hasn't been a discussion yet because we wanted to get this part of the recommendations out to just get our input to see if this was a realistic plan to move forward. It may not even be the city that does the redevelopment of the space down there. It may be another nonprofit or some other group. I think we're open to a lot of different options for that. So that's part of the reason we haven't gone too far down that line. We really wanted to get this proposal out, get the feedback, and determine if this is the path we want to go first, and then come back to then what becomes of that.
Yeah, and I would just encourage you to remember that there's going to be a huge cost to somebody to change this space into something other than a swimming pool. And if it ends up being the city of Iowa City, then the taxpayers pay for it. My other concern is when I look at this, especially City Park, you're taking out half of the swimming lanes at City Park with this draft view. You've got 3 50-meter lanes. And, you know, people swim at City Park a lot in the summer. And you're also, unless I'm wrong, I don't see any 25-yard lanes in this plan. So a lot of people swim at City Park in the 25-yard, which is right before you get to the deep end. So you're cutting out a lot of opportunities to swim laps. While you've got 56% of the people who responded to these surveys saying that aquatics is extremely important in this town. So it's interesting to see the data that says aquatics are really important and they're well utilized, but let's close a pool and let's reduce down the fitness part of it, right? So I'm
Sure. So I can comment on a couple of those things. So first of all, the recommendation to close this pool would be only if we could do the addition at Mercer. So we'd end up with similar amount of pool space in the end. At City Park Pool, you're right. There's no 25 meters. That was actually pointed out this afternoon in the meeting too. Right. So we're gathering that kind of input. Realize that at City Park Pool, we had just as many non-lap swimmers comment and want different types of pool spaces as we did lap swimmers.
Right.
Same thing. We heard that pretty loud and clear this afternoon. We had a number of people in the audience that were saying the same thing, need more lap lanes, and then we had a number of parents of small kids saying, great, but we need more space. Trying to keep it within the same footprint means there's trade-offs for both. And we've tried to hit a middle ground. I realize it doesn't do everything for all groups, but that's why we're proposing this, to get the feedback and to say we tried the best we could to listen to everyone and boil that down into a design that works in the space with the constraints we have there.
Okay. You can't please all the people all the time is what you're trying to say.
Diplomatically,
yes. And my third point is, you know, when everybody wants free parking, City of Iowa City owns this lot, do they not? Can they not provide free parking at this facility sometimes?
We would love to. The issue is the number of college students that would take it over immediately if we...
Well, that's true.
So you may have free parking, but I doubt you would have any parking at that point.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, and one solution to that is to look at your pricing policy for like I said with aquatic, like with Aquasize, for example, the pricing policy doesn't make any sense at all, and I'm not going to go into it right now. It is really, it doesn't make any sense, and it's not monitored at all. So a lot of people who you think are not at Aquasize might be there, but they're not signing up ahead of time. Nobody at the front desk is asking them if they're signed up, if they paid. There's nothing going on there. And so I lost my train of thought on that. So something with this pool, a solution would be to put that into a pricing policy. I can buy a $500 pass and I can use this Aquasize 6 days a week and I can get parking included for an extra amount. I mean, there's solutions to that as well, other than just not having free parking. So, I think that's all I had. Let me just look at my notes as I was taking them. I do appreciate you guys having these meetings. I'm curious, when you talked about the demographics, where can we see those? Can we see those somewhere, public-wise?
Yeah, absolutely. It's public record as far as using the U.S. Census Bureau data. That's where we do get our information from. And there's a company called Esri that interprets that data for us and makes those predictions of what the population might look like into the future. So we do have a component of the final draft plan, a whole section on the demographics that digs into age, race, ethnicity,
So it wasn't
income.
actual Iowa City demographic. It was projections more.
It uses current data that is accurate. So we do have to say that this 2010 data, because right now the 2020 data from that census has still not been, it doesn't have the final seal of approval, unfortunately. Okay. So we used the 2010 actual data and projections for 2026 and the estimates for 2021.
And I will tell you, we cut those slides from this presentation because the one this afternoon got much too long.
Sure.
So we have them when we finish this meeting. If you'd like to see those slides, we could definitely show them to you after the meeting too. Okay. And they will be online with the full report as well.
Okay. I have two other really quick comments. One is that I do believe that many of the staff that work at this pool live downtown. So when you say you're going to have staffing, you can just move your staff to one location. A lot of those people won't move to that location because they live and work downtown. I wanted to make a comment about the ball diamonds at City Park. I mean, putting a lot of money in those. Aren't those in the flood zone?
Yeah, correct.
I mean, haven't they been flooded 45 times in the last 50 years? I'm exaggerating, but I know. but yeah. I mean,
that is true, and that is a drawback that was considered in that.
Okay.
The long-term lower City Park plan shows a raising of the road around them to provide a levee. So that's part of that $1 to $2 million cost, I think, that they showed in that to make it more flood tolerant. But that is also long-term for that.
Okay. Okay, and it was also just one more comment about the farmers market. Mentioning the farmers market is really important. A lot of vendors have really figured out how to do business other than the farmers market, as we can all see every Saturday, right? So I wonder if that's still because that was data probably from 2019 also, the farmers market being, and it is important. I love the farmers market, but I wonder if that public opinion has changed now that people have figured out another way to buy fresh from farmers.
We have seen that impact. The first 3 weeks of any season, like you've seen, there are empty spaces just because the produce vendors don't have their full crops yet. So our spaces are all filled a few weeks from now, once we get things rolling a little bit more. So we know that the Saturday market is still much loved and much used. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Jill Fishbaugh, 221 East College Street. I love this pool, and I want to put in my 2 cents that I wish you would keep it open for a number of reasons. By closing this pool and just having the pool at Mercer, you're taking away a lot of lanes. And if you knew how it works, people swim before work, go to work, right? And so it's very busy at that time. So if you're just looking at there's plenty of lanes at Mercer, but they aren't when people want to swim. You have to wait for a lane, or you can't get in before work. And now that I'm retired, I try to let the people who work go, and then I'll come later. But still, like today, I mean, all the lanes were full until this pool was closed because you've cut the hours at this pool. So we're all trying to, get in when we can. And I see that in all of these plans, there's a lot of money being talked about, 30, 40 million for these other ballparks. Let's look at how many people use those ballparks and for how long. I mean, I'm all for the kids having all these parks, but is it 11 weeks a year for kids, you know, this age to this age, whereas we're trying to be a community, a swimming pool. You're trying to teach everyone to swim in this community. It's a lifelong skill. It is something that everyone of every age can use all 12 months of the year. And so when you look at all the money that you're going to spend over your budget of a recreation for our community, and the survey says 56% of the people want to emphasize aquatics, why can't we spend the money and build the beautiful pool at Mercer and keep this pool here too? I think I mean, if we're looking ahead at the demographics and the people that are downtown, that all the apartments that are going up and the luxury living that these students are getting, I think there's a big need in the future for more use at this pool.
Students aren't swimming here.
Yeah, I'm convinced the students are at the rec.
Students aren't swimming here. The students are swimming at the rec center.
Yeah, but aren't some of the new housings for professionals and other people that are coming to our community not so much? I don't know. Anyway, thank you for listening. I don't know what else I have on my list.
Hi, my name is Karen Crane, 742 South 7th Avenue, and I am also a frequent user of the Robert A. Lee Pool and really advocate keeping it open for a couple of reasons. I'm not an Iowa City native. I grew up in Los Angeles, which has a terrible history of raising its older buildings and replacing them with new buildings. Robert A. Lee is a jewel. It has a feeling that no other building has. It's distinctive and it's really irreplaceable. And I think that you will be following the terrible lead of my beautiful hometown of Los Angeles by trying to find efficiencies. And I actually don't think those efficiencies will be there. I live closer to Mercer than I do to Robert A. Lee, but I come to Robert A. Lee because although I have to pay for it, I can find parking here. I can't always find parking at Mercer, and I don't know if there's a plan to expand. Bradford Street has a lot of congestion. There's one little way in, there's one little way out. I don't know if all of that will change. And when you think about who swims at Mercer, it's City High, boys and girls. Isn't it ICE? Don't they swim there? Mm-hmm. And I just don't know how you're going to replace the swim time that we have here that she mentioned in the morning. I still work.
It's my colleague.
And, yeah. So I'm trying to get here early, and I just do not foresee those lanes being there for people like me. And I think it would just, this is a jewel, this is a gem. You mentioned that it would cost double to replace it. I think we should really work on fixing what we have, this beautiful thing that we have that sets us apart. So, thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Thank you to everyone who came and shared your thoughts. Appreciate that. And now we'll open it for some commission questions. If there are questions from the commission.
Are we just asking general questions about the plan? Yeah. I actually do have one. I know that at some point there is a need to increase the size of the water treatment facility at Kickers for the city of Iowa City. And so I know that from what I understand of past conversations, that will take over the space that is currently Kickers. I'm not sure, do we have an idea of what dates those are? And I just think we just need to keep that in mind as we look at these plans, that at whatever date that is, that those soccer fields that are heavily used, even though for just a short time, will need to be replaced if we were to keep that program alive as it currently exists?
That's a great question. So the question is, right now our Kickers soccer field resides largely on land that is actually owned by the wastewater treatment facility. And in the future, that facility will likely need to expand, and we would need to move some of those fields. That was somewhat the genesis of East Side Sports being planned. So there could be some replacement fields. And there's also some opportunities for some land acquisition around the current Kickers. It's not a highlight of this plan at this time because the time frame we're being given is more like 15 to 20 years out, and this plan is a 10 to 15 year plan. So indeed it does include a master planning process to look at what the plan should be, but the actual construction of those additional or moving those fields would likely not happen during the time span of this particular plan.
I just wanted to mention it because I know it's something that had been discussed at some point.
Yeah, I guess I have like a mix of questions and comments. So some of them will be questions for you. Some of them are more comments from my colleagues as we kind of like think about this. And some of them are in response to like thoughts that came to mind as I was listening to members of the public who spoke. So, I mean, one thing that struck me as being like a very good question is I appreciate that it's not just, in my mind, like a matter of how much would it cost to fix the pool here. I understand that's like 4.6 or something like that million. 58 years old, underneath a bomb shelter, super thick concrete that makes it difficult to penetrate and to do work. So then I wonder, okay, is it really like a responsible expenditure of taxpayer dollars to try and renovate a structure that may very well need constant maintenance and renovation because of the underlying infrastructure? But then I guess the question that was, I think, provoking is, well, what goes here after that? And what is that going to cost? I mean, it's a big space. Are you going to like partition it into smaller spaces? It clearly, architecturally, was meant to be a pool. So I suspect it will take some money to change that configuration. And then you had said, Julie, you know, might a nonprofit or other, the other, like the pause in me was like, ooh, is other a private developer that the city will lease the space out to? I suppose that is a possibility. It is be like an unknown what the city council decides to do with the space. So all of that sort of struck me as, well, what does that leave us? And like, what comes here after? Some of the points, though, I did not find terribly compelling. You know, staff is downtown, so will they not go to Mercer? That feels very speculative. I don't know the answer to that, but I don't know that I would make a decision based on that. I was curious, and I'm not finished, but there's just to drop a question in. I understand that the pool hours have been constricted here. Is that due to staffing limitations or some other reason?
It was due to more efficient use of our staff and just use numbers of the facility as we've had over the last 2-3 years. So indeed, we're still monitoring that, and it's something that could change, but it was done primarily because we were having 2 lifeguards for maybe 1 or 2 people in the water a majority of that time.
And I guess this is also like sort of 2 empirical questions that I wanted to know something about. Maybe you know something about this, or you do. So one remark was, oh, what are going to happen to all those people on the west side of town? They'll have to drive all the way to Mercer, which is at a greater distance. But then I kind of wanted to know a little bit more, like, is it, I think what underlies that is an assumption that a lot of people who live on the west side are using this pool. So I wanted to know if we had any empirical data on who uses the Robert A. Lee pool. And I guess related to that, data that would be useful is the argument that downtown's housing unit density has been increasing, and so would we not want to allow some use of a pool? My admittedly anecdotal and speculative thought is that most of those come in the form of student housing, and so they're probably using either the Fieldhouse pool or they're using the very nice and very large recreation pool at the CRWC. But again, that really is a question of what type of housing units are going into downtown predominantly. It seems to me that most of the new construction is on the far west and the far east that are more akin to single family homes that you might suspect for families, not students. But again, that's an empirical question about development in the downtown area, and so I wouldn't want to speculate on that either. But maybe you have some information.
Okay, so let me backtrack through a couple of those questions. Would the space be used by a private entity? Likely not. I wouldn't rule it out, but the space probably would not be reconfigured with a private entity. We've had several ideas kicked around by, and actually a couple suggested this morning through email after seeing the media press about this. One that's very intriguing would be to make a indoor skate park with the curves of the swimming pool, and they had some really good examples of how that's been retrofitted. That would serve another need that we're hearing a lot of input on from the public. I'm not recommending that at this point. I'm just sharing that as one of the ideas that would not be millions of dollars to do. It would be a couple $100,000 to do. Still expensive. I could see one of our youth nonprofit organizations being interested in partnering on something like that, or something that's more teen and young adult focused in a space like that. As to the question of people living in the West Side using this facility, we know that indeed swimming lessons hit all areas of the community. So a large part of the heat map you saw from the West Side is swim lesson parents coming here. That's because most of our swim lessons happen here right now. And I believe that they would travel to wherever the swim lessons were offered, whether it be here or Mercer. It's just this one has lower use on everything else, so it gets more swimming lessons scheduled. Did I hit on all the questions at that point? And the other thing about Mercer is it does tie into the city transit study that is looking at starting Sunday service, so that we would have bus service out to Mercer on all 7 days. So that would help with the accessibility of getting to Mercer versus being here in downtown.
Is part of the plan to expand any of the parking at Mercer, or was the parking stay static?
I think that's a detail we don't know yet. So potentially the parking lot does need to be renovated just in general due to its asphalt condition, not the first little part, but the second part. And the status of the old pool house that's there being used as storage is questionable right now too. So a lot of things could change in the layout of that area.
Yep, go for it.
Have you done any kind of traffic studies around Mercer with, if it's expanded and more use? I mean, just from years of dropping my kids off there, it is kind of a bottleneck, and yeah. I'd be curious what more traffic would do to that area. It's not super convenient to get to.
Sure. I think that's a great question, something our MPO staff could definitely look into for us. And obviously it's concentrated in those 2 times of the day of morning drop off and afternoon pickup. But we are in conversation with the school district, understand their future plans there as well. So once we get past this phase, if it's the recommendation, we would really dive into that with both the school district and our traffic engineers. So.
And then I had another question about what is the annual cost for a pool pass? Like if you want to use this facility.
I'm looking, maybe Gabe knows, or yeah, I apologize. I can tell you the capital project costs on everything, but I do not know the pool pass price. So.
Yeah, and part of the reason I was just curious because I know that the university pool is available to the community, and I just looked it up. It's so $560 a year for that, so it'd be quite a bit more. But just.
Yeah, I mean, can I just clarify though? That's just for a pool pass. I mean, so Aquasize is it's $4 a class, which doesn't sound very much, but if you go like 5 days a week, you spend $100 a month on just Aquasize. And that does not include to be able to come in here and then swim laps on another day. There is no solution right now with the city to get some kind of annual pass that it just gets you into the pool and lets you do Aquasize. So that's why I said the pricing policy is really messed up since COVID, and they changed it, which, but if you want to do an Aquasize class, 6 days a week, we spent $100 each last July doing 6 days a week. And that's $200 a month for a family, you know, a household. We weren't going to do that every month, but that's expensive. I mean, North Dodge Athletic Club is, you know, $89 for a couple or something, you know, for a month. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you for letting me say.
I was just gonna, I guess, make a couple of comments about Mercer. There's a couple of different accesses to go in there. I know it probably, when it's really busy, it might get a little congested, but if people knew where they were coming in from, it might be easier, as well as they have that really large parking lot there that you can park in. So, I mean, it will accommodate several people. I mean, when I haven't been there for quite a while, but I've taken when my son learned to drive, that's where I would take him to practice driving because the parking lot was always empty, you know. So there's a huge parking lot there. And then the other thing I was going to say about driving, if you live downtown, to driving to Mercer, or from driving from the west side to driving to Mercer, it takes me 5 minutes to get from Taft and Court to here. 5 minutes. When I lived in Minneapolis, it would take me about an hour to get somewhere, 45 minutes to an hour. So, I mean, and everybody's time is managed different and means different things to them. I do understand that. I do understand that. But, you know, I guess everybody's got to weigh what's important to them. And I'm not making a judgment or anything. I'm just pointing that out, that everybody's got to, you know, make that judgment for them on what's important and where they want to go.
The one thing that I wanted to add, when this was brought up last month or at the last meeting about the potential to close this pool facility, I was kind of hesitant at first because I don't like the idea of removing amenities downtown and shifting outward, just leaving kind of a big open gap downtown. But when we saw that image of the heat map showing where the usage of the recreation facilities, there was kind of a big gap downtown, it looked like. So that soothed some of my concerns about it. And imagining some of the things that might replace there, like the skate park, an indoor skate park, or something like an indoor vertical farm as an extension of the Backyard Abundance outside to move something inside as an urban farm. Or I'm sure people can come up with tons of other uses for this. It's an amazing space with all the light and the openness. So I'm feeling less concerned about closing the facility, but I do want to hear some of the concerns that the public has brought up about, especially the lap swim, and it sounds like we're really reducing the number of lanes available and the time available. So do we have the numbers showing how many lanes we have now, what it's going down to, and how that would impact the people who actually use them?
Yeah, I think we do. I think you'll find it's the same discussion that we have with all of our recreation facilities. We've heard from time to time we don't have enough baseball fields, but nobody's using them on Friday nights or Sunday nights or some different times. Gym space, kind of the same. There's a lot of different ways that we can adjust the way that they're using. I know that lap swimmers don't want to share lanes with too many people. I come from metro departments where 6 or 8 people circle swim in a 50-meter lane. So there are options that would be different than what we're used to. I don't purport that any of these are ideal for our current users. The recommendations look at the overall broader efficiency and the way that we provide services to all. So there is an equally adamant push for the warm water pool from a number of the aqua fitness and people that love the idea of getting more ramps and accessibility to get into those pools, as there is from lap swimmers who want lap lanes. So in the end, I think as a commission and eventually the council, it will just be weighing how do we best provide service to all of these different user groups. And that is one of the most difficult things we can do. Hence, why we have a lot of meetings like this, hence why we are gathering as much public input as possible. We understand Iowa City is a little different than some other communities with their priorities and whatnot. We also understand that there are some solutions that are kind of new to Iowa City that have worked in other areas, and given a chance here might help with some of the concerns that we're hearing, if that makes sense. Can you come up to the thing?
One thing that I think is really important is I don't think you have good data. I come here frequently, and if I remember to check in, they catch me. People are walking right by. People are already circle swimming. So I just think before you make a decision, you need better data about usage. Sure.
I appreciate that.
I feel that very strongly.
We heard that same sentiment at our other meeting, just so you know, so that has been heard loud and clear. As far as the public input part of it, though, we had several suggestions about you really need to go out to the outdoor pool and ask questions of the users. I just want to remind people that we did that all of last year and into the fall and winter. So we have an amazing amount of public input from all different types of users. So it may not be from last month, but we do have an amazing amount of public input already gathered. That was the basis of the recommendations you're seeing now too. So I appreciate that.
And it may have changed because people are feeling more comfortable going out because COVID seems to, well, at least people believe it's abating. But I really do think your numbers probably need updating.
First off, just once again, just very appreciative of the public comment and coming and voicing your concerns. So we definitely value your opinions and thoughts. And so first and foremost, thank you very much for that. As I was studying kind of the packet and reviewing, definitely was pleased, and some of the questions that I had seemed to be some resolved in some of just accessibility and making sure that we had future plans for some of the accessibility, because I know in a lot of the different facilities currently today, it's somewhat of a challenge. And so was pleased with some of the recommendations that have been proposed as it relates to accessibility. And I too was very similar to Melissa as well, hesitant, and when first heard of the possibility of this building, or not building, excuse me, but the pool possibly being closed. But looking at the heat map was also informative for me. And so I think it goes into the fact of making sure that we have the accurate data, as was just kind of mentioned that way as well. But have been very appreciative of the efforts by staff as well in going out into the community and capturing feedback, as well as other parties, and trying to make a concerted effort across the entire city and not just have it be isolated. And so definitely appreciative of all the efforts that have been made to date for that. Some additional questions, I think, and I guess from a timing, we've heard public comment tonight as well, and then there's been some additional feedback as these recommendations have gone out, which is beneficial as we weigh kind of the decisions and recommendations. Kind of what are the next steps, and from a timing perspective,
Sure.
Julie, as well?
So tonight, as a commission, you have the option of weighing in with your thoughts on each of the 4 items kind of in your agenda packet: City Park Pool, the Mercer and Robert A. Lee pools, facilities for recreation programs, meaning those satellite type facilities, and then the recreation program ideas and recommendations. And those aren't final recommendations, but we would ask for your comments to capture those for those 4 areas. We will continue to be collecting data from the public or input from the public through June 4th. All of that, along with the comments from the Parks Commission, will go to the City Council as part of their June 21st meeting at this point. The council will have the benefit of seeing the report as it is now, with all of the background demographic information, everything that you've seen a couple times now, along with the recommendations as outlined in the draft plan, and then a summary of all the comments and input received about the draft plan this week and next week, if that makes sense. The council will look at that point. We don't expect them to make a final acceptance or not acceptance of the plan at that point, but I think they will give us some good feedback of, yes, they are understanding the direction the plan's going. They may have some other questions we need to evaluate. And we would look at probably formalizing the plan later this summer or early fall. The next step being, more intense design work on any and all of these concepts that we're talking about, because there are a lot of things that that could use a lot of tweaking based on the input that we receive. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just more thoughts. In terms of like what our next steps are, I feel very comfortable recommending or giving like our seal of approval to the council for the city park pool, the facilities and recreation programming, and the recreation programming. I think the only one that maybe merits a remark or two is the city park pool. I know that it is going to lose some of its swim lanes, but I'm very cognizant that aquatics does not necessarily mean, and does not mean, lap swimming. And it's the responsibility of the city to serve many different types of users, including families. But I think we want to keep the footprint relatively the same because it enjoys like this vista and the trees, and we don't want it to intrude into the other parts and become something much like larger than what it is now. But really because of that, it makes me feel a little uneasy doing something with B just yet, because you're, at least in terms of lane space, I know the question is in terms of volume of usage, you're losing lanes overall between Mercer and here because you're going to add the warm water pool on the side, but it's not a one-for-one swap, as I understand it.
Correct. Although I would point out that a good portion of the lap lanes here are from time to time used for the aqua fitness classes. So that would mean that instead of the aqua fitness classes taking the main pool space at Mercer, they would all be in that secondary pool, if that is how that works. That makes sense. So you would gain some lap lane space simply from that.
Yeah, so I hear that. I just feel like there's like maybe a little slippage there that I can't like quite put my finger on and be like, okay, I got it. I'm totally bought up. It's like I see like theoretically, yes, like I got it. But you're also losing some lanes at City Park. Now, we live in Iowa, so you can't use the lanes at City Park very often, right, for lap swimming. It's like a very small part of the year. Again, like why I think that pool would be used better in its different configuration, more accessibility, more family use in the warm weather months. So that's what makes me, if we do anything with B, my thinking is we want to get more information or just consider it more, get some more public input, think a little bit more about it. But anyway, that's just kind of where I am.
So can we go just kind of one at a time down through?
You can, and you could actually split B into Mercer expansion and future Robert A. Lee too as two items if you felt that was appropriate.
Well, I move to recommend approval to the council for item A, which is the City Park pool.
Is it seconded?
I'd second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So should we skip B and come back if you want to go through the others?
Well, let me ask a question. So the Mercer plan involves not only, well, I guess that's I see what you're saying, like split Mercer apart.
Yes.
But I think, I mean, isn't a little bit of what happens at Mercer contingent on what happens here?
I would suggest that's likely the case in terms of aquatics. Now, if the public was, willing to help pass a bond referendum or something that would fund both, I mean, that could happen, but our recommendation would be one or the other. So they are somewhat contingent on this pool. I would not recommend this pool closing unless we had the expansion done at Mercer. Also at Mercer, though, you have the concept of the added gym space, the indoor walking track, and the reconfiguration for additional adult wellness facilities there. So this maybe should have been listed a little separately, but.
Let me ask a follow-up question. Is it contemplated that A through D would be funded from the capital improvement budget without additional bond issuances? It would just come off the city's normal budget and normal capital improvement Budget.
Likely not. A majority of it, or a fair amount of it, could. But depending on the timing of all this, and once we get final numbers, the City Park pool itself may take a bond referendum to do that. The renovations largely at the 2 rec centers probably are within the bonding capacity, but I don't know that until we have final numbers. And the athletic field upgrades, those are budgeted at smaller amounts over a number of years in the CIP right now. To do the larger $40 million plan, that's not within the current capital budget. So the answer is kind of like some yes, but not all.
Well, just in the interest of maybe picking low-hanging fruit, I move approval for item letter C, facilities for recreation programming.
Can someone clarify what that refers to again?
So that's the idea of a few satellite, and I would rather describe it as indoor shelter space rather than it's not a general rec center like you see here, but it is a smaller indoor space at up to 4 locations, likely 2 to begin with, 1 as part of the City Park pool renovations, and 1 potentially at Weatherby Park. The Weatherby Park one very well might be eligible for some of the ARPA funds that are becoming available, so we may have funding sources for that. But the idea would be another indoor recreation programming space for, say, 50 people to sit down and have a potluck together. So it's meant to be a smaller neighborhood space that can be used by programming and used for lower cost rentals for community groups and that sort of thing, taking those recreation programs out to meet the equity issue throughout the community.
And that's in addition to the other
yes, at this time, yes.
I'd second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And then what does the recreation programming refer to then?
So that refers to the directions given within the report you just saw to look at more adult. I'm going to have to remember them all, but yeah. Yeah, it's looking at adapting the programming mix to the findings of the public input and the report.
That was like one of them was taking adults or aging adults and seniors and like subdividing them into different demographic groups depending on where we're like seeing demand.
Is there a budget associated with that?
I think it's just a reallocation of our current programming. Excuse me. Primarily, yeah, reallocating what we're doing to better meet the needs that we're hearing through all the public input.
I move approval of recreation programming, item D.
Anybody second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And now we're back to B.
Back to B. Are there additional comments from the commission or viewpoints?
If you look at the slide behind you, it has kind of the 2.
So definitely from the public comment that we've heard previously, I think the indoor track would be a feature that would be heavily used. You know, if I separate the aquatics, you know, from the gym and from the other areas, I think there's definitely opportunity to expand the footprint and programming as a whole. I think moving some of the reception or lobby area around to better meet the needs and from a staffing, I think makes logical sense. And some of the other kind of facilities there as well from a wellness standpoint, I think also would be heavily used, especially with the close proximity to the junior high, and with the increase of the junior high being adding an additional grade. I think there's definitely impacts that way, so it would be even more usage that way going forward. I think the sticky point for me is just on the aquatic piece that way. And I think that's at least what I'm sensing from some of the others, both from public comment as well as feedback I've received.
So you've had other public meetings, like
Correct.
one earlier today,
Yes.
and then of course there'll be one later. Where is it?
Right.
Will be in here?
Yeah,
Elsewhere?
it'll be here in about 35 minutes.
35 minutes. So do you have transcriptions of how, so I understand there are folks here who feel strongly about keeping the pool, but I'm cognizant of the squeaky wheel getting the grease or the oil or whatever it is. So do you have like a sense of how, or do you have transcript of what those remarks were? Like how widely held, how representative are some of the remarks that were made here of the other public meetings about strong sentiment for keeping the pool downtown open?
I would say that we don't really have a transcript. We will have notes from it. Being that it was held at Mercer, it had many more Aqua Fitness members who were very adamant about wanting the warm water pool and the walk-in hot tub. That was there more. We had probably the same number of lap swimmers, but not with the interest in Robert A. Lee, but more lap lanes at City Park Pool. That was the hot topic for that one. So yeah, and we had just a second. We also had several that were interested in more of the ball field discussion, which you haven't heard tonight. So you'll probably have another variety of that tonight. Yeah. So.
One other thing that I'm not sure, and I'm sure you have a better idea, but the usage of the Mercer pool, aren't there gym classes for junior high students that take over for swim lessons? Or?
Historically, there used to be, and that's why it was built in conjunction with the school, but no longer do they use it for that purpose.
Okay, and then I was looking at the size of it, just because I'm thinking with the community our size, maybe we can have two pools. I mean, maybe there is enough use, and especially in the future, if we're looking ahead. But if you look at the footprint of that pool and then the tiny pool that is going there, I mean, it isn't more lanes to swim. It isn't a fair,
it's not a one for one.
We take this away and we give you the, you know what I mean? So,
I'll actually jump in and say,
okay.
Remember that the current pool is 50 meters. So when you look at the size of the proposed warm water, that's going to be closer to 25 meters.
Right, but it's only 3 lanes.
Right now, and that was another comment we heard was, could you put more lanes? And that was one of the comments entered in, could we make it even bigger? And I don't know the answer to that, but
It's just deceiving because you do have such a great large pool. It's fantastic.
How many lanes are here, Julie? Do you know off the top of your head? Or does one of
I'm going to ask one of the lap swimmers because I'm sure they know. 6, 8.
So there's 8 here, and how many will be included in this pool?
There's 8 there, yeah. There's 8 lanes in a swimming pool.
Yeah.
That's the standard.
So this one right now is envisioned, the warm water pool is about 3 lanes wide. So
it's going to be less than half the size of this. Because if you look at Mercer.
One less than half, right?
Right.
Okay.
So if you look at Mercer, that atrium area is where you're talking about putting these, and that's not a very big area.
it's just covering that area. It will probably expand beyond that. We're just giving people the idea of where it is. To the commission, I need to remind you that you probably need to wrap this up soon so we can. Up at the, come up to the
mic, please. Yeah.
I was going to mention this earlier. There is an increase in crime in the Mercer area, and I just want to remind everybody of that as you push more people in that area. There's been shootings in Mercer Park recently, so I mean, I just wanted to bring that up. You're and not that there's no crime downtown,
Yeah,
but
it feels like an empirical question. Like,
I'm just,
is it
not a
your
question,
sense
it's
that
a
crime
statement.
is going up, or is it like actual? I would hate. I hear you, but like I would hate to make a decision unless I like actually knew crime statistics in the Mercer area have actually increased.
Well, I mean, I'm asking you to look that up if you can.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point, but like as an assertion,
Right.
I don't know that I want to like make a decision based on that.
Sorry. I know we're in kind of a crunch. I did miss the last half of last month's meeting, and there was a lot of information presented just now. I mean, could you do a real kind of bullet point of why are you recommending closing this pool and moving? Like, is it the bunker? Like, would
Sure.
you be able to do that?
Yeah, I could do that really quickly. So the first genesis of the idea was the number of people requesting a warm water pool with better parking. I think that was the very first starting point of why we've been looking at that. And that's been a consistent request for the last 5 years since I've been here. They would like to have more space at Mercer for aquafitness that is not cold water. So that's part one. Part two was we were all surprised with the costly estimates for what it would take to renovate this pool and bring the current filtration and piping and all that. We do have money set aside to do that, but only about half the amount of what we're finding it would actually take. So that was a bit of a sticker shock to say how much it would take to keep this building. Thirdly, I know you've heard differently tonight, but we would say that the use of this facility is lower than maybe what it's being portrayed as. That's not unusual for any time we are talking about changing service levels in a park, in anything. All of a sudden, everyone uses it. That hasn't been, we wouldn't have made looked into this as a recommendation if we thought the use was so high that we wouldn't be able to accommodate users. And the final one is looking at how can we be more efficient with our staffing, our maintenance staff, our lifeguarding staff, our management staff. And that's a new one for anyone looking at aquatic facilities to say, we don't have an unending supply of certified lifeguards any longer. How can we make that more efficient and still offer a high level of service to the community? So those are the reasons behind that. I totally understand that there are lap swimmers that have been here for years that this will impact. There's Deepwater Aquafitness, who you really haven't heard from yet, too, which will also be impacted if the space was not used for that. But when I look at how we can more efficiently use city resources and the capital funding that we have in the future, that's where the idea comes to move it to Mercer and have a new facility that meets the need of it meets the health and wellness needs of our adult and aging population, which is a theme we heard throughout the report. I'm not opposed to keeping both pools open if that was financially a good idea. I'm not so sure it is. Closing Robert A. Lee Pool is definitely not high on my priority list. That's why we're putting it out as a recommendation to get more feedback. But professionally, I would say it probably makes the most sense for how best to use the resources we have for the public right now. I don't have an exact number, but it came through very, very high on all of the surveys that we received. Yeah, it's in all of our data reports that we have that come in from that, so.
I'm a little reluctant to offer a suggestion about the pool here, just based on the fact that the public didn't have a chance to weigh in the way they did on the city park pool, because we hadn't identified this as a need at the time that those surveys and all of those meetings were going on. So given that public could see the potential on the new city park pool, this is, I don't want to say it's kind of coming out of nowhere or blindsiding people, where we're not getting the opinions of most of the public like we had on some of these other things. So for that reason, I'm kind of reluctant to make a suggestion on this. My heart says, keep it, give it a chance. Let's. It's great, but my brain is kind of saying, well, yeah, the numbers don't quite seem to justify that. So I don't know if my brain is just inevitably going to win out, but I'm not quite ready to give up yet.
Yeah, you said
maybe we just don't, right? I mean, we can send the rest of these items to the council. The report is just that on this one item, we're still thinking about it. The council's not going to vote at it at its June meeting, and it won't probably until its fall meeting, by which time we'll have had another meeting ourselves. And we can think about it a little bit more.
And you could say that's due to the amount of input you're receiving, and you want that's perfectly fine too. Yeah, that's part of the reason why we're trying to get the word out, so that people don't feel blindsided about this. We want the input coming back. So
I would suggest we do nothing with this for this meeting, and hold it and table it until next meeting. And maybe in the interim, we can have more information about what comes out of the public meetings, including the one that's going to happen after this one here. And maybe hear from more people, think about it a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, so the comment is we also have the social pinpoint site open on the web. We had 80 people as of earlier today that had provided feedback that way as well. So you'll also have that information too.
When does that close?
June 4th.
June 4th.
And we have a lot of publicity going out to make sure people know. All of the swim pass holders and aqua fitness people got a direct email from me today, letting them know this was out there, exactly that these were part of the recommendations, because we really do want the word out. We're not trying to hide anything here. So, yeah.
So I understand it. The recommendation for item B is to do nothing at this time as we garner more feedback from the public.
Okay.
Do I need a motion for that one?
No, we're just going to not do anything with it. Right. Just carry it to the next agenda.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. That concludes item number 4.
Do we need to wrap?
Yeah.
I do have a couple announcements we need to do under staff reports.
Yes.
We have time for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're done with item 4. Just a couple things from Parks and Rec Director. Mowing, I just want to say we know that there are a few parks where little dogs are getting lost in the grass. Know a couple of things. First of all, the heat wave we had really boosted the grass quickly, and we had 3 of our largest mowers go down in the same week. So we're really trying. We've rented whatever equipment we can find to catch up. This seems to always be the case first thing in the spring, but rest assured we're aware and are getting around to all the parks as quickly as possible to get them mowed. Project Green is a group that does a lot of volunteer work for us in some of our landscaping beds around the community, most specifically around the Ashton House. Every week they send me an email with their updated of how many volunteers they had and what they did. They would like to know if the Parks Commission would like to be added to that weekly email. Would you like to maybe have it added to your packets each month? They'd like to get information to you about what they are doing as part of their volunteer labors. So I'm just looking for some feedback about how you might want to receive that.
Very appreciative of all the volunteers, and so I think adding to the packet's fine.
Add to the packet. Okay.
Yeah, I think at least I get a lot of emails, so packet would be preferred.
Okay, we shall do that.
You're arriving for your meeting.
Yep, that's all I had. So,
okay. Is that anything from any other staff reports? Are we good for time?
Anything, Brad, that you wanted to report on?
Any highlights?
Yeah, a couple of different things. All right, so we've got City Park Pool opening this weekend. We're going to be on modified hours there, so it's 11 to 6 this weekend, including the holiday, and then 11:30 to 1 for the next week, and then we get into our regular hours. Couple events that we have coming up. We've got Pedal Power, which one of our initiatives is to get kids on bikes. So on June 5th at Terry Trueblood from 1 to 3 p.m., we've got the Pedal Power event where we teach kids how to bike using skills courses and educational components. And then one program that I want to note that we're starting on June 1st, this is a new initiative. One of the things that we realize that kids and families sometimes have difficulties getting to recreational opportunities by way of transportation, whether the cost is too high for them. So we're launching our Wreck and Ride program, which is going to be all year round. It's in partnership with Transit, where we subsidize half the cost of their round trip cost to get to and from recreation experiences here at our recreation centers, our parks out during the summer, summer camp, whatever it may be, the swimming pool, farmers market. We'll be able to give them a pass when they check in with us that they can ride the bus back home for free, and we subsidize the cost.
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you, Brad. I know Tyler's not here as well, so. Yeah. Okay, nothing for chair's report. Any commission items? We can start down at the end. So.
No.
Nope. Yep. All right. With that, motion to adjourn. You don't have to do that. Yeah, so I don't have to do. So we adjourn the meeting. So thank you so much, and thank you again to everybody who came from the public and for your comments.